There's an old saying that the eyes are the windows to the soul, and in this video we're going to talk about eye accessing cues in therapy. Let's get into it. Hello and welcome to Therapy Business School. My name is James Taylor. I'm an online counsellor, hypnotherapist, life coach, hypnotherapy supervisor. I'm also an author, a podcaster and a YouTuber. Just a quick shout out first of all, I've got a free Facebook group, also called Therapy Business School. I'll put the link for that in the description. And I also want to say a thank you because this YouTube channel has just hit 17,000 views, and that's down to you. So thank you very much. That's very much appreciated. If you like this video, please remember to do the like, the share and the subscribe. That really does help the channel, by the way. So let's get into this eye accessing cues. It's such a powerful tool, more powerful than you can possibly realize. Now, anyone who's watched this channel before knows that I used to be in the police. I was a detective in the police. I was in for 23 years. And over that time, I must have interviewed literally thousands of either victims or witnesses or suspects over and over and over again. And I used to use knowledge on eye accessing cues to give me a bit of a steer on whether someone was being completely legit or genuine or not. And it transitions fantastically over into the therapy world. So let's talk about that. One of the things that I do is I run study groups for student therapists to help them develop their skills. And an interesting thing happened last week where we were talking about eye accessing cues and how this can be used in therapy sessions. And I thought it'd be a great idea for this video with it. Now this transitions fantastic over into the therapy world. Now this comes from the world of NLP or neuro-linguistic programming. And where we look activates certain parts in our mind. Or another way of saying this is when we're thinking about an emotional thing, we're not going to be looking at the person in front of us. We're going to be looking around unconsciously. So this is all going under the radar. This is pure body language. And what we're doing is we're looking around in our head and our eyes are moving depending on what part of the memory or the feeling or the emotion that we're accessing. And there's lots of ways to remember this, but I'm going to give you the big four, all right? I'm going to do a little demo so you can see it live in action. But what I would like you to do is grab a pen and paper and make some notes and test this out yourself. Don't just take my word for it. Test it out for size. Try it with family. Try it with clients. Try it out and you'll be amazed at what you now realize is going on with your clients. All right? So here's the big four. Now, if I look up to my left, I'm accessing memory. If I look up and I go to my right, I'm using imagination. It doesn't necessarily mean I'm lying, but I am using imagination. If I go down to my right, I'm accessing emotions. And if I go down to my left, I'm self-talking. Okay? So memory, imagination, emotions, and self-talk. Now with eye accessing cues, this can happen really quite quick. So you've got to be really on point to catch it. Now it doesn't necessarily mean that you can solve and answer the universe, but it just gives you a steer on what the client might be saying. So let's come up with a fictitious scenario. Let's say you've got a client and they're in a difficult relationship and they're thinking about leaving, but they don't really know what they're going to do and how they're going to leave. They haven't got the steps in place yet. Well, if you're talking to a client about this, they're probably going to be up here a lot. They'll probably be going from memory to remind themselves of all the reasons why they want to leave in the first place. Now, if you're asking, what does it look like when you leave? They probably go over here because now they're imagining what would be like, what would life be like if I left? And their eyes are going to be over here a little bit. Now, they might go down to the emotion. What would life be like if I left? What would that feel like? And then what would I do? And what would that feel like? And how would I cope? And what would happen then? So they could spend a lot of time, their eyes flitting up here and down there. and then they might go over to the bottom left, their bottom left, and there might be a lot of self-talk. So an example, if it was me, for instance, I was the client, I'm going to run through this fictitious scenario, and I'll over-exaggerate my eyes so you can see what I'm talking about. So it might be, well, it's not been good for a long time, and I really want to leave, but I don't really know what that would look like, and it might feel a bit difficult, and I don't know where I'd live and what would I do for money. Maybe I'm best just staying. Okay. Do you see how, of course, I was over-egging it, and I was doing it intentionally. When this is done properly, there's no intention. It just happens right in front of you. So how can this benefit you as a therapist? Well, let's say you're working with a client, and let's say that the client has got a difficulty, and they are exacerbating that difficulty in their own mind. So their eyes could be here, because they're talking from memory. But when they exacerbate, they could go over here to where the imagination is. And then they could start imagining what's going to happen. And then they can start to get the emotions as if this was really happening. You might have done this yourself. Have you ever spoken about something that's bothered you years ago, years and years ago, and you speak about it to somebody, and as you speak about it, you start getting some of them same old feelings that were there years ago? It's because you've gone over there, you've used memory, you've gone over to imagination, and now you're imagining and remembering. So there's a little bit of both going on. Maybe a bit of emotion going down on the right hand side, but you'll start to feel the effects of doing this. So I'm going to give a little bit of a false story. Well, it's going to be a real story, but I'm going to put some false bits in it, and I want you to guess what I'm doing and see whether you get it right. And at the end, I'll do a bit of a reveal. Now, before I get into the story, one thing to look out for. If someone just maintains eye contact straight with you, not looking anywhere, it's unnatural. Okay? Normally, when you're sitting with somebody and they're talking, their eyes are doing this and that, they're all over the place. So if someone is looking straight at you and they're not moving eye contact, be wary of that, because it's an unnatural act. Now, that can sometimes happen if someone's told themselves a story so often, they don't need to imagine, they don't need to remember, they don't need to get emotions, they don't need to self-talk. They're reciting a script. And that's where their eyes can be very, very fixed. So if you ask some other questions around that, we'll get more detail. Not necessarily eye accessing cues, but another thing that might happen. Watch the blink rate. Now, two things can happen, and I'm not hedging my bets by saying this. This is what can happen. When someone's stressed, they can either blink more than normal because they're trying to keep their eyes completely clear because they're stressed, or their blink rate can slow right down. And I'm talking blinking maybe 4 to 6 times a minute. It's unnatural. And this is why some of the best actors in Hollywood, who get paid the big bucks, I'm talking the real great actors, what they're able to do is intentionally bring this kind of stuff in. There's a great scene from The Godfather, and it's where Al Pacino is in a cafe meeting with a guy who's tried to kill his father, Marlon Brando, or the Don. And the deal is that Al Pacino has gone into a toilet where a gun has been hidden. And he's meant to come back out and assassinate this guy who's tried to kill his father and a police captain. But he doesn't do that. He finds the gun in the toilet, and when he secretes it in his pocket. And he comes back out and he sits down at the table in this restaurant, listening to these two guys talk. And the camera zooms right in on his face, and you can see the turmoil in his face. Rewatch that and look out for the eye accessing cues, because he's all over the place. He's using imagination. He's definitely doing self-talk, and he's down here with his feelings and emotions. And the camera zooms right in, and then he reacts. Great bit of acting from Al Pacino. So this is why some of the great actors get paid the big bucks, because they're able to intentionally bring this stuff in to their performance. So, talking about performances, let's get on with mine, which is going to be a true story with some false bits in. And I'll put words around the screen so you can keep track of what's what. Let's try it out. When I was a small boy, we lived in a house that had 2 living rooms. There was one upstairs and one downstairs. Now, one day, I must have been about 6 or 7, I got up and I went downstairs, and I noticed by the fireplace there was a drawer from a chest of drawers, and I could see a towel in there, or a blanket, whatever it was, I can't really remember now. But there was this towel or blanket and a black thing in it on top of the towel or the blanket, and I didn't really know what it was. I wasn't scared, I just didn't know what it was. So I got on my belly, because I was 6 or 7 years of age, and I, commando style, crawled over to the drawer. And as I got closer, I just peered over the top of it. And it was just, I was looking at this black thing and I couldn't make out what it was. It looked a bit like a jumper that had been bundled up and just put on top. And there was a little pink thing there as well, in the middle of the black thing. And I was looking at it thinking, what is that? And as I was looking at it, the black thing opened its eyes, and it was a little black puppy, and it became known as Bess. And Bess was the best dog a young boy could ever have. She used to keep me company. She used to sleep on my bed. She used to welcome me when I used to come in. Beautiful, most beautiful dog you could ever wish to meet. And she really was my best friend. Now, we also had a cat, and the cat was called Tracy. I don't know why people give human names to cats, I don't know. But the cat was called Tracy, and it was a bit of a ginger Tom, and it had a bit of an angry way about it. You'd walk past it and it would try and scratch you with its claws, and I didn't really like this cat. We never really got along. And my favourite was Bess, and that's the story. Now, what do you think? Which part is real? Which part is false? Well, I'll tell you. The story about Bess was true. The story about the cat, I can't even remember what I called the cat, but the story about the cat, completely fictitious. I'm actually allergic to cats. But did you notice how, with the true story, I was able to give more detail? And with the cat, when I started developing that story, and I didn't rehearse it, I was just doing it on the fly, I couldn't wait to get the story over because I didn't have any memory to deliver in the story. Where with Bess, I could talk about Bess for hours. But what did my eyes do? Obviously, I wasn't paying attention to what I was doing, and I'll probably notice during the editing process of this video. But did you pick up on the fact where my eyes were going? Was I accessing memory? Was there some emotion attached to it when I was talking about Bess? I should imagine there will be. So start looking out for these things yourself. So as a reminder, up here is memory. Up here is imagination, not necessarily a lie. It can be a lie, but it can be imagination. Down here is emotions, where you're really getting into you're really feeling it. And over here is the self-talk. All right. A reminder to join the Facebook group. The link will be in the description. And in the next video upload, I'm going to talk about a real skill that you can develop to help you get a real insight into what clients are saying. So I'll see you on that one. So this is James from Therapy Business School, and my best wishes from me to you. Bye-bye.